The air in Oakhaven, Vermont, tasted of pine and unease. A town so deep in the woods it felt less like a place and more like an oversight, a forgotten patch of civilization clinging to the side of a mountain. Sheriff Brody, a man whose face was etched with the same granite weariness as the peaks around him, had lived his whole life here. He'd seen the usual, the drunks, deer, and the occasional lost hiker. But this was different. It started with the silence, not the quiet of a winter morning, but an absolute, suffocating void. The birds stopped singing. The crickets went mute. It was as if sound itself had been siphoned away, leaving behind a hollow ringing in everyone's ears. Then came the whispers. They slithered through the town on the cold night wind, faint at first, like static on an old radio. People would wake up in a cold sweat, convinced they'd heard their own names hissed from the shadows outside their windows. The strange occurrences escalated. Old man Hemlock, who ran the general store, swore the canned goods on his shelves rearranged themselves overnight, labels facing inward. A teenager named Jenny found a child's rocking horse rocking furiously in her attic, a place she swore she had never been. The most disturbing incident involved Sarah, the town's librarian, who claimed the words in her books were shifting, the stories changing subtly as she read them. A romance novel became a tale of grotesque insects, and a history book began to describe events that had never happened. Brody tried to find a logical explanation. He called the state police, but they dismissed it as mass hysteria, a side effect of isolation. But Brody knew better. The fear in the town was palpable, a living thing. It coiled around every house, every person. The whispers grew louder, bolder, now seeming to come from the mouths of the trees themselves. People stopped leaving their homes after dark. They locked their doors, double-checked their windows, and huddled together, listening to the disembodied voices that knew their deepest fears. One night, Brody was driving back to his office when his headlights cut through the gloom and caught a figure standing in the middle of the road. It was a little girl in a white dress, facing away from him. He slowed the truck, but as he got closer, a low, guttural sound came from the radio, a sound like grinding bone. The girl's head snapped around, impossibly, a full 180 degrees. Her eyes were two perfect circles of black, and she was smiling a smile that showed too many teeth. Brody floored the gas, swerving around her as his mind screamed that this was not a little girl. He drove to the town hall and saw the townsfolk huddled together inside, their faces pale and drawn. But something was wrong. Their eyes were fixed on the windows, and they weren't looking at the darkness outside. They were watching their own reflections, and in those reflections, something was moving behind them, a shadowy, contorting presence that mimicked their every move. Brody backed away slowly, his hand on his holstered gun, realizing with a horrifying certainty that the things they were seeing were not outside. They were already inside, and they had been for a long, long time. The whispers weren't coming from the shadows. They were coming from themselves.